The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the UES. Horizon's edge, Commander Sarah Chun stood tall in the center of the command deck, her eyes fixed on the massive display screen. 3 enormous ships had just appeared at the edge of their solar system, each one larger than any human vessel ever built. "How big are they?" Chun asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Each ship is about 5 miles long, Commander," replied Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "They're unlike anything in our database." Chun felt her heart rate increase. For 20 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. Every military academy taught the same lesson. When aliens finally came to Earth, they would come as invaders. The evidence was clear throughout human history. Stronger civilizations always conquered weaker ones. It was the way of the universe. "Battle stations," Chun ordered. The alarm began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights bathed every corridor as soldiers ran to their positions. "Charge all weapons, launch fighters. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the invasion has begun." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. These were not new recruits. Every person aboard the Horizon's Edge had fought in the Martian War. They had seen battle. They knew how to fight and how to die if necessary. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera sat at his station near the back of the bridge. His job was different from the others. While they prepared for war, he listened to alien communications. Rivera had studied languages his whole life. He could speak 12 human languages and understand the basic structure of 20 more. But alien languages were different. No one knew what they would sound like. The speakers crackled with static and strange sounds. Most of the crew heard only noise, but Rivera listened carefully. Something was different about these sounds. They had a pattern. "Commander," Rivera called out, "I'm detecting structured signals from the alien ships." "What kind of structures?" Chun asked without turning around. She was busy coordinating with the fighter pilots launching from their ship. "Mathematical sequences, I think." "They're broadcasting numbers." Chun finally looked at him. "Numbers? What kind of numbers?" Rivera worked quickly at his computer, running the signals through translation programs. "They're sending prime numbers, Commander. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. It's a clear mathematical progression." Chief Petty Officer Hayes, a large man with scars across his face from the Martian War, laughed. "So what? Maybe that's how they count their weapons before they fire them," but Rivera shook his head. "No, sir. This is different. Prime numbers are universal. Any intelligent species would understand them. It's a way to show mathematical knowledge. It's like saying hello." The bridge went quiet except for the sound of computers and the distant rumble of fighter engines. Chun stared at Rivera. "Are you suggesting these aliens came here to talk?" "I don't know, Commander, but they're not firing. They stopped moving when they reached the edge of our system, and they keep broadcasting these numbers." On the main screen, the 3 alien ships hung in space like dark mountains against the stars. They had weapons, that much was clear from the sensor readings. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire cities. But those weapons were not charging. The ships were not moving closer. "It could be a trick," Hayes said. "Make us think they want to talk, then attack when we lower our guard." Chun nodded. That was exactly what human military doctrine taught. Never trust an enemy. Shoot first and ask questions later. It had kept humanity alive during the wars on Mars and Europa, but Rivera stood up from his station. "Commander, request permission to respond." "Absolutely not," Chun said immediately. "We don't make contact with hostile aliens, we defend ourselves." "But what if they're not hostile?" Rivera asked. "What if we're wrong?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Around the bridge, officers looked at each other. It was a possibility no one had considered. All their training, all their preparation was based on one assumption: aliens would be enemies. "The fighters are in position," reported Lieutenant Torres. "All weapons are charged and ready to fire." Chun looked at the tactical display. 40 human fighter ships surrounded the Horizon's Edge. The main ship's guns were aimed at the alien vessels. One word from her and the battle would begin. "Commander," Rivera said quietly, "let me try one transmission. Just one. If they respond with weapons fire, we'll know they're hostile. If they respond with more mathematics, maybe we can avoid a war. And if your transmission tells them exactly where we are and how to destroy us? Hayes asked. They already know where we are, Rivera replied. Look at their ships. Their sensors are more advanced than ours. They could have attacked us already if they wanted to. Chun closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her training. She thought about her duty to protect humanity. She thought about the 3 alien ships that could destroy them all but had not fired a single shot. What would you send? She asked. Rivera was ready. The next prime numbers in the sequence, 17, 19, 23. Then I'd try something more complex. Maybe the Fibonacci sequence, then mathematical constants like pi. And if they don't understand, then we'll know they're not trying to communicate. But if they do understand, if they respond with more mathematics, then we'll know something important. We'll know they came here to talk, not to fight. The bridge was silent except for the sound of breathing in computer systems. Every person waited for Shin's decision. Outside, the alien ships waited too, hanging in space like questions waiting for answers. Chun looked at her crew. These people trusted her. Earth trusted her. Humanity trusted her. The decision she made in the next few seconds might determine whether the human race survived or died. Send it, she said finally. Rivera's hands moved quickly over his controls. The transmission went out into space, carrying mathematical concepts across the void between species. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The alien ships remained still and silent. Then the speakers crackled to life. The sounds were different from before, more complex. Rivera worked frantically to decode them, his computer screens filled with numbers and equations. Commander, he said, his voice filled with wonder. They're sending back the Fibonacci sequence. But they're not just repeating it. They're showing us how to calculate it using a method we've never seen before. They're teaching us mathematics. On the main screen, the alien ships began to move. But they were not moving toward the human fleet. They were arranging themselves in a triangular formation, a shape that meant peace in almost every human culture. My God, whispered Dr. Sarah Okafor, the ship's science officer. They really did come to talk. But even as Rivera celebrated this first moment of communication between species, Chun felt a cold fear in her stomach. If these aliens had traveled across the galaxy just to talk to humans, what did they want to talk about? What could humanity possibly offer to beings with such advanced technology? And more importantly, what would happen if humanity could not give them the answers they sought? The alien ships waited in their peaceful formation, broadcasting mathematics and patience into the void. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, humans faced the greatest question in their history. What did the aliens want? And did humanity have what they were looking for? The first contact had been made. Now the real challenge would begin. 3 hours after first contact, Commander Chen stood in the main docking bay of the horizon's edge. She wore her best dress uniform, but her hand stayed close to her sidearm. Around her, 20 armed Marines formed a protective circle. Despite the peaceful mathematics, she was not taking any chances. The alien shuttle was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It moved without engines, floating through space like a soap bubble. The hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. As it settled onto the deck, no doors opened. Instead, part of the wall simply became transparent. 3 beings stepped through the transparent wall as if it were air. Commander Chain had seen many strange things in her military career, but nothing had prepared her for the HFY. They were tall, much taller than humans. The shortest was 8 feet high, and their leader stood over 9 feet. Their skin looked like liquid mercury, shifting between silver and pale blue. They had 2 arms and 2 legs like humans, but their faces were completely different. Where humans had eyes, the aliens had large oval shapes that seemed to hold tiny stars. They had no visible mouth or nose, yet somehow they moved with grace and purpose. The leader stepped forward. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere at once, like music made of light. I am Veltar of the Kethmori, the being said. The words formed perfectly in the air, though Chun could see no mouth moving. "We greet you, humans of Earth." Lieutenant Rivera stood beside Chun, holding a portable translation device. For the past 3 hours, he had worked to build a basic communication system using the mathematical exchanges. His hands shook slightly as he operated the machine. "Welcome aboard our ship," Chun said carefully. "I am Commander Sarah Chun. This is Lieutenant Rivera, our communication specialist." Veltar turned those star-filled eyes toward Rivera. "You are the one who spoke mathematics to us. You have a gift for patterns. This is good. We will need such gifts for what we must discuss." Dr. Okafor stepped forward from behind the Marines. "May I ask how you learned our language so quickly?" "We did not learn your language," Veltar replied. "We are translating our thoughts directly into concepts your minds can understand. It is a skill our people developed long ago when we first joined the Confederation." "Confederation?" Chun asked. "The Galactic Confederation of Intelligent Species," Veltar explained. "We represent 47 different civilizations spread across this galaxy. Each species brings unique knowledge and abilities to share with others." Rivera looked up from his translation device. "And you want humanity to join this confederation?" Veltar's star eyes seemed to dim slightly. "That depends entirely on whether you can help us solve a problem that has puzzled every species in the galaxy." Chun felt her military training take over. "What kind of problem?" "A question," Veltar said simply. "One question that no civilization has been able to answer correctly." Chief Hayes moved closer to Chun. "Commander, this could be some kind of test. Maybe they're seeing if we're smart enough to be worth conquering." But Veltar heard him and turned those strange eyes toward the big Marine. "You fear deception. This is understandable. But we did not travel 3,000 light years to deceive you. We came because our Confederation is dying, and you may be our only hope." Dr. Okafor pulled out a recording device. "Dying how?" Veltar gestured with one long arm, and suddenly the air above them filled with images. Planets appeared, showing cities and civilizations beyond human imagination. But many of the cities were burning or lay in ruins. For 6,000 years. Veltar said, "The Kethmori have been at war with another species called the Zarkith. It began with a simple disagreement over mining rights to an asteroid field. But it has grown into something that threatens to destroy both our peoples." The images changed, showing massive battles in space. Ships larger than Earth's moon fired weapons that could crack planets. "Why can't you just make peace?" Rivera asked. "That is the heart of our problem," Veltar replied. "The Kethmori believe in perfect justice. When someone wrongs us, we must repay that wrong exactly. If they destroy one of our ships, we must destroy one of theirs. If they kill 1,000 of our people, we must kill 1,000 of theirs. It is the only way to maintain balance in the universe." Chun nodded. It made sense from a military perspective. "And the Zarkith?" "The Zarkith believe in perfect mercy. They forgive all wrongs, no matter how terrible. When we destroy their ships, they do not fight back. They simply build more ships and try to reason with us. When we attack their planets, they evacuate their people and offer us the planets as gifts." Dr. Okafor looked confused. "That sounds like it should end the war, if they won't fight back." "But it does not end anything," Veltar said sadly. "Because they will not defend themselves properly, the Kethmori see them as weak. We continue to attack, seeking the justice we believe the universe demands. And because they always forgive us, they continue to put themselves in positions where we feel we must attack them again." Rivera stared at the alien being. "So you're trapped. Your justice demands you keep fighting them, and their mercy means they won't stop you." "Exactly. Both species are locked in a cycle that will continue until one or both of us are extinct. We have lost billions of people. They have lost billions as well, though they died trying to make peace rather than fighting." The images faded from the air. The docking bay became quiet except for the sound of the ship's engines. "Other species in the Confederation have tried to help," Veltar continued. "Some practice perfect justice like us. Others practice perfect mercy like the Zarkith. But none have been able to find a solution," The war continues. Commander Sheehan felt a chill run down her spine. And you think humans can solve this problem? We have studied your species for many years, Veltar said. You are unique in the galaxy. You practice neither perfect justice nor perfect mercy. Instead, you do something no other species has ever done. You choose when to forgive and when to seek justice. Hayes laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You mean we're inconsistent? We can't make up our minds. No, Veltar replied firmly. You are adaptable. You evaluate each situation and choose the response that will create the best outcome. Sometimes you forgive enemies and make them into friends. Sometimes you punish wrongdoers to prevent future crimes. Sometimes you do both at the same time. Doctor. Okafor stepped closer to the alien. You want to know how we make those choices? Yes, we want to understand how you balance justice and mercy. How do you decide when someone deserves forgiveness and when they deserve punishment? How do you break cycles of revenge without becoming victims? How do you maintain order without becoming monsters? Rivera looked around at his fellow humans. That's not an easy question to answer. If it were easy, Veltar said, we would not have needed to travel across the galaxy to ask it. Every other species we have encountered follows simple rules. Attack those who attack you, forgive everyone who wrongs you. Love your friends and hate your enemies. But humans seem to follow no simple rules at all. June found herself thinking about her own life. The pirates who had killed her brother during the Martian War. She had hunted them down and brought them to justice. But she had also accepted the surrender of their children and helped them find new lives. She had never thought about it as special. It just seemed like the right thing to do. The question we must ask you, Veltar said, is this: how do you choose to forgive? The docking bay fell silent. 5 humans stared at one alien, and the alien stared back with eyes full of stars. The question hung in the air between them like a bridge across an impossible distance. That's it? Hayes asked finally. That's the question that's stumping an entire galactic confederation? That is the question, Veltar confirmed. And the future of 47 civilizations may depend on your answer. The news traveled faster than light itself. Within 6 hours of Veltar's arrival, every human settlement from Earth to the outer colonies knew about the aliens and their impossible question. The response was immediate and chaotic. Commander Chun sat in her ready room, reading message after message from Earth Command. Admiral Morrison's face filled her communication screen, his expression grim. Chun, I want you to stall these aliens as long as possible, Morrison said. Tell them we need time to consider their question. Tell them anything, but do not give them an answer. Sir, may I ask why? Morrison leaned forward. Because half the governments on Earth want to weaponize whatever makes us special, and the other half want to hide it so the aliens can't steal it. The military brass thinks if we can figure out this forgiveness thing, we can use it to control other species. Make them easier to conquer. Chun felt sick to her stomach. Admiral, I don't think that's what the aliens want. It doesn't matter what they want, Commander. What matters is what humanity can gain from this situation. Keep them talking, but don't give away our secrets. The communication ended, leaving Chun alone with her thoughts. She had spent her entire career following orders, but these orders felt wrong. Outside her window, she could see Veltar's ship floating peacefully near. The horizon's edge, the alien had been nothing but honest with them. It seemed wrong to lie in return. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Lieutenant Rivera entered, followed by Dr. Okafor. Both looked tired and worried. Commander, we have a problem, Rivera said. The crew is divided about what we should do. Some people think we should help the aliens. Others think we should tell them nothing. Dr. Okafor sat down heavily in a chair. It's more than that. People are scared. They're asking questions we can't answer. Like, what if we give the aliens the wrong information and they use it to hurt people? What if our way of thinking causes more wars instead of stopping them? Chun nodded. She had been thinking the same things. What does Veltar say about all this? That's the strange part, Rivera replied. When I told him we needed time to think about his question, he said he expected that. He said humans always consider the consequences of their actions before making big decisions. He thinks that's part of what makes us special. Through the ship's communication system, Chun could hear arguments breaking out in different sections. In the mess hall, Chief Hayes was loudly telling anyone who would listen that humanity should keep its secrets. In the science lab, younger crew members argued that they had a moral duty to help stop a war that had killed billions of people. "Commander," Dr. Okafor said quietly, "there's something else. Veltar brought data about the war between his people and the Zarkith. I've been studying it, and it's worse than he told us." Chun looked up. "How much worse?" "The war isn't just killing soldiers anymore. Both species are running out of resources. Planets are being abandoned. Entire star systems are becoming uninhabitable. At the current rate, both civilizations will collapse within 50 years. Rivera sat down next to Dr. Okafor. "And it's spreading. Other species in the Confederation are taking sides. Some support the Kethmori-S idea of justice. Others support the Zarkith-S idea of mercy. The whole galaxy is starting to split apart." The weight of the situation settled on Chun like a heavy blanket. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and somehow humanity held the key to saving them. But how could they give advice about something they had never really thought about before? "I've been trying to understand how we make decisions about forgiveness," Dr. Okafor continued. "I've studied human history, psychology, philosophy, and the truth is we don't really know how we do it. It's instinctive. We just feel our way through it," Rivera nodded. "That's what makes it so hard to explain. Veltar keeps asking me to describe the process, but I can't. It's like trying to explain how to breathe or how to walk." Another message came through from Earth Command. This time it was Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the head of the Xenobiology Institute. "Commander Chun, I want you to gather as much information as possible about alien technology and culture. This is the greatest scientific opportunity in human history. Don't let emotional considerations cloud your judgment." Chin turned off the communication without responding. Everyone wanted something from this situation. The military wanted weapons. Scientists wanted knowledge. Politicians wanted power. But what did humanity actually owe to the aliens who had come asking for help? A soft chime indicated someone was requesting permission to board the ship. Chen checked her display and saw that it was another alien vessel, smaller than Veltar's ship. "Commander," came the voice of Lieutenant Torres from the bridge, "we have a second alien ship requesting permission to dock. They're transmitting identification codes that indicate they're from a different species." Chun made her way to the docking bay, followed by Rivera and Dr. Okafor. When they arrived, they found Veltar already there, waiting. His star-filled eyes seemed dimmer than before. "I hope you do not mind," Veltar said. "I have invited a representative of the Zarkith to join our discussion. I thought you should hear both sides of our conflict." The second alien ship docked, with the same ethereal grace as the first. When the wall became transparent, a very different being stepped through. The Zarkith representative was shorter than Veltar, only about 7 feet tall. Where the Kethmori had metallic skin, this being seemed to be made of flowing water held in a roughly humanoid shape. Patterns of light moved through its body like schools of fish swimming through clear water. "I am Nimdar of the Zarkith," the water being said. Its voice sounded like gentle rain. "I come to offer perspective on the question you have been asked." Chun looked between the two aliens. Even standing near each other, they seemed to represent completely opposite philosophies. Veltar stood rigid and formal, like a judge weighing evidence. Nimdar flowed and moved like a dancer, radiating peace and acceptance. "Nimdar," Rivera said carefully, "can you tell us about your people's approach to the conflict?" "We believe that all beings are capable of growth and change," Nimdar replied. "When the Kethmori attack us, we see beings who are trapped in old patterns of thinking. They hurt us because they believe they must, not because they are evil, so we forgive them and try to show them a better way." Chief Hayes, who had arrived with several Marines, stepped forward. But that doesn't work, does it? They keep attacking. You. The path of peace is not measured by immediate success, Nimdar said gently. Each act of forgiveness plants a seed. Eventually, those seeds will grow into understanding. After 6,000 years? Hayes asked roughly. How long are you willing to let your people die while you wait for those seeds to grow? For the first time, Nimdar's flowing form seemed to hesitate. That is ... is a question my people struggle with. We know our path is right, but we see our children die, and we wonder if perhaps perfect mercy is not always the answer, Veltar finished. Just as we have begun to wonder if perfect justice is not always the answer. Dr. Okafor looked at both aliens with new understanding. You're both starting to doubt your own philosophies. Yes, both aliens said at the same time. Rivera stepped between them. That's why you need humans. Because we've already learned that. Neither perfect justice nor perfect mercy works all the time. We've learned to mix them together. But we still don't know how to explain it. Chun added. Veltar and Nimdar looked at each other, then at the humans surrounding them. In that moment, Chin realized that these beings had traveled across the galaxy not just for answers, but for hope. They needed to believe that their ancient war could end without the destruction of both civilizations. Perhaps, Nimdar said slowly, the explanation is less important than the demonstration. Veltar's star eyes brightened. You mean, we should observe how humans make these decisions in practice? Chun felt a chill run down her spine. You want to watch us ... Forgive people and seek justice, Veltar added. We want to see how you balance the two? How you choose which response fits which situation. Rivera looked around at his fellow crew members. I think that can be arranged, but it won't be easy. Human decision-making is messy and complicated. We understand complicated, Nimdar said. What we do not understand is balance. And so, with the fate of galactic civilization hanging in the balance, the crew of the Horizon's Edge prepared to do something they had never expected, teach aliens how to be human. Against direct orders from Earth Command, Lieutenant Rivera made a decision that would change everything. He gathered the crew of the Horizon's Edge in the main assembly hall and announced his plan. We're going to show our alien guests how humans really handle conflict, Rivera said, standing before 300 crew members. Not through lectures or theories, but through real situations. Commander Chun stood beside him, knowing she was risking her career by supporting this unauthorized demonstration. But watching Veltar and Nimdar together had convinced her that traditional military protocols would not solve this problem. Some of you volunteered for this, Rivera continued. Others are here under orders. But everyone will participate honestly. Our alien friends need to see how we actually make decisions about justice and forgiveness. In the front row, Veltar and Nimdar sat side by side. Other aliens had arrived from both species, filling the first several rows. Their different forms created a strange rainbow of silver metal and flowing water. Chief Hayes raised his hand. Lieutenant, with respect, this feels like we're putting on a show. How is that going to help them understand anything real? Because, Rivera replied, we're not acting. These are real situations from our ship's history. Real conflicts between real people. We're just recreating them so our guests can see how we handled them. Dr. Okafor stepped forward carrying a tablet with case files. We've selected 5 situations from the past year. Each one involved different types of wrongdoing and different responses from the command staff. The first case involved Petty Officer Jackson, a young engineer who had been caught stealing food from the ship's stores. Jackson himself stood in the center of the hall, looking nervous but willing to participate. Tell us what happened, Jackson, Chun said. Jackson cleared his throat. 6 months ago, my family back on Mars was having money troubles. My little sister needed medicine, but my parents couldn't afford it. So I started taking extra food from the stores and selling it at the next port. Veltar leaned forward, his star eyes focusing intently. You stole to help your family? Yes, sir. I mean, yes, honored alien. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what else to do. Nimdar's water form rippled with interest. And what was the punishment for this theft? Commander Chun stepped forward. That's where it gets complicated, Jackson broke the law. Ship's regulations are clear about stealing supplies. The standard punishment would have been reduction in rank, loss of pay, and possible discharge. But, Rivera added, we also had to consider why he did it. Jackson wasn't stealing for himself. He was trying to save his sister's life. Hayes, who had been the one to catch Jackson stealing, spoke up. I wanted to throw the book at him. Rules are rules. If we let one person steal because they have a good reason, soon everyone will have a good reason. Dr. Okafor nodded. But I argued that Jackson's motives mattered. A person stealing to help their family is different from someone stealing for personal gain. The aliens watched this discussion with fascination. Veltar spoke first. So how did you decide what to do? Chun smiled. We did something that probably seems crazy to both your species. We punished Jackson and helped him at the same time. Jackson stepped forward again. The commander reduced my rank and docked my pay for 3 months. But she also arranged for the ship's medical fund to pay for my sister's medicine. And Dr. Okafor helped me apply for hardship assistance for my family. Nimdar's form shimmered with confusion. You punished him for breaking the rules, but you also solved the problem that made him break the rules. Exactly, Rivera said. We held him accountable for his actions, but we also addressed the underlying cause. Jackson learned that there were better ways to handle his problems, and other crew members learned that the command staff cares about their families. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. This is unprecedented. You enforced justice but also showed mercy. At the same time, the second case was more complex. It involved Lieutenant Morgan, who had made a critical error during a combat simulation that would have gotten people killed in a real battle. Morgan stood straight and proud, but Chang could see the shame in her eyes. Morgan made a mistake that could have cost lives, Chun explained. She forgot to check her scanner readings before ordering an attack on what she thought was an enemy ship. In reality, it was a civilian transport. Hayes crossed his arms. In a real battle, hundreds of innocent people would have died because of her carelessness. Dr. Okafor looked at the aliens. The question was whether this was a mistake that required punishment or training that required more education. How do you tell the difference? Asked a new voice. Another Kefmori had spoken, one whose metallic skin was darker than Veltar. Lieutenant. Morgan answered herself. They looked at my record. They talked to my fellow officers. They tried to understand whether I was careless by nature or whether I just made one bad decision under pressure. Rivera nodded. Morgan had always been a careful officer. Her mistake came because she was trying to protect civilian ships from what she thought was a real threat. She acted too quickly, but her intentions were good. So what happened to her? Nimdar asked. I was temporarily removed from combat duties, Morgan said. I spent 3 months in additional training studying civilian identification protocols. I also had to personally apologize to the crew of the transport ship we targeted in the simulation. Chun added, but we didn't end her career. We invested in making her better. Today, Morgan is one of our best tactical officers. A Zarkith in the audience spoke up, their voice like wind through water. You corrected the mistake without destroying the person who made it? People learn from mistakes, Dr. Okafor explained. If we destroyed everyone who made errors, we would have no experienced officers left. The third case made everyone uncomfortable. It involved Chief Petty Officer Barnes, who had been caught selling military equipment to black market dealers. Barnes himself was no longer on the ship, having been discharged in disgrace. Barnes betrayed his oath for personal profit, Chun said simply. He sold weapons and armor that could have been used against human forces, Veltar straightened. This sounds like a clear case for justice. What punishment did he receive? Hayes stepped forward. Complete discharge from service, loss of all benefits. Criminal charges filed with civilian authorities. And his name was added to a list that prevents him from ever working in security or defense again. But, Rivera added, we also looked at why he did it. Barnes had a gambling addiction. He owed money to dangerous people who threatened his family. Nimdar's form flowed with interest. So you showed mercy for his circumstances? No, Chun said firmly. Some actions are too dangerous to forgive, regardless of the reasons. Barnes put every human in danger by selling weapons to criminals. His personal problems didn't excuse that level of betrayal. Dr. Okafor pulled up medical records on her tablet. But we did make sure he received treatment for his gambling addiction, and we helped relocate his family to a safe place where his creditors couldn't find them. The aliens looked confused. A young Kethmori spoke up. You punished him completely. But you still helped him? We ended his ability to hurt others, Rivera explained. But we didn't abandon him as a person. He made terrible choices, but he was still a human being with a family that needed protection. The fourth and fifth cases continued the pattern. Each situation was different. Each required a different balance of justice and mercy. Some people received light punishments and lots of help. Others received severe punishments but still got assistance with underlying problems. After 3 hours of demonstrations, the hall fell quiet. The aliens sat in their seats, clearly struggling to process what they had seen. Finally, Veltar spoke. Every case was different. You had no single rule that you followed. That's right, Chun confirmed. Each situation required its own solution. But how do you decide? Nimdar asked. How do you know when to emphasize justice and when to emphasize mercy? Rivera looked around at his fellow crew members. We ask ourselves questions. Can this person learn from their mistake? Will punishment make them better or just make them angry? Will mercy encourage others to break rules, or will it show them that we care about solving problems? Dr. Okafor nodded. We try to imagine ourselves in their situation. We think about what would help us become better people if we had made the same mistake. You put yourselves in the place of those who wronged you? Azarkath asked in amazement. Sometimes, Hayes admitted grudgingly. It doesn't mean we excuse what they did, but understanding why people do bad things helps us figure out how to stop them from doing it again. Veltar and Nimdar looked at each other. For the first time since arriving, they seemed to be really seeing each other, not as enemies locked in an ancient pattern, but as beings trying to solve the same impossible problem. This is not perfect justice, Veltar said slowly. And it is not perfect mercy, Nimdar added. No, Rivera agreed. It's just ... human justice. Messy and complicated and different every time, but it works for us. The aliens continued staring at each other, and Chun realized something remarkable was happening. For the first time in 6,000 years, Kethmori and Zarkith were truly communicating, using human concepts as a bridge between their opposing philosophies. Everything changed in the space of 30 seconds. The horizon's edge shook violently as weapons fire struck its hull. Emergency alarms screamed through every corridor. Commander Shin was thrown from her chair as the lights flickered and went. Out, report. She shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Torres's voice came through the communication system, strained with panic. Commander, we're under attack. Multiple ships, unknown configuration. They're not Kethmori or human vessels. In the assembly hall, chaos erupted. The alien guests moved quickly but calmly toward the exits. Veltar's metallic form seemed to glow brighter, while Nimdar's water body began flowing faster, creating patterns that looked like fear. Those are Zarkith's ships, Nimdar said, their voice heavy with sadness. But not from my diplomatic corps. These are extremists from the war faction. Rivera helped Dr. Okafor to her feet as another blast shook the ship. War faction? I thought your people were pacifists. Most of us are, Nimdar replied. But some believe that contact with humans will corrupt our pure philosophy of mercy. They think your way of thinking is a disease that will spread to our people. Veltar moved toward the door with surprising speed. They are not wrong to fear. Change. If my people learn to balance justice with mercy, it will end 6,000 years of tradition. Chief Hayes was already speaking into his communication device, organizing the Marine response, but his face was grim. Commander, our weapons are designed to fight human ships. We don't know anything about alien technology. Through the ships' viewing ports, They could see 3 Zarkith vessels surrounding the horizon's edge. Unlike Nimdar's peaceful transport, these ships bristled with weapons. They moved like angry sea creatures, flowing and striking with deadly precision. "They're targeting our engine core," Torres reported. "If they breach it, we'll be dead in space." Commander Chun made a decision that went against every military protocol she had ever learned. "Veltar, can your ships help us?" The tall alien turned those star-filled eyes toward her. "My people do not fight alongside others. We fight for justice, not for friendship." "This isn't about friendship," Chun said desperately. "It's about protecting innocent people. Your people and mine." Another blast shook the ship. This time, the lights stayed off for several seconds before the emergency power kicked in. Rivera stepped between Chun and Veltar. "You came here to learn about human decision-making. Well, here's a human decision. We protect our guests, even when it puts us in danger." Dr. Okafor was monitoring her medical scanner. "I'm detecting Zarkith life signs throughout the ship. Some of the extremists have boarded us." Hayes cursed and activated his weapon. "Marines, we have hostile boarders. Protect the alien diplomats at all costs." The sound of fighting echoed through the corridors. Human Marines engaged Zarkith extremists in battles throughout the ship, but the aliens were faster and stronger than humans. The defenders were losing. In the assembly hall, a section of the wall suddenly became transparent. 3 Zarkith extremists flowed through, their water forms dark and angry. They moved toward Nimdar with obvious hostile intent. "Traitor," one of them said, their voice like crashing waves. "You have contaminated yourself with alien thoughts. You must be cleansed." Nimdar backed away, their peaceful form trembling. "Please, we are so close to finding a solution to our war. Do not destroy this chance for peace." "There is no peace with the Kethmori," the extremist replied. "There is only perfect mercy or perfect corruption. You have chosen corruption." The extremist raised what looked like a weapon made of crystallized water. Rivera stepped in front of Nimdar without thinking. "No," he said simply. "I won't let you hurt a being who came here seeking peace." The extremist fired. The crystalline projectile struck Rivera in the chest, spinning him around and sending him crashing to the floor. Blood spread across his uniform as he struggled to breathe. Dr. Okafor rushed to his side, pulling out her medical equipment. But even as she worked to save his life, Rivera did something that shocked every alien in the room. He looked up at the extremist who had shot him and whispered, "I forgive you." The Zarkith extremist stopped moving. "What did you say?" Rivera coughed, blood speckling his lips. "I said I forgive you." "You're afraid. You think we're going to hurt your people or change them into something they're not?" "I understand that fear. I forgive you for acting on it." "But," Rivera continued, his voice getting weaker, "forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to let you hurt innocent people." Veltar had been watching this exchange in silence. Now he stepped forward, his metallic form seeming to grow larger and more imposing. "You shot an unarmed being who was protecting another," Veltar said to the extremist. "By the laws of perfect justice, I must now shoot you." The Zarkith extremist turned toward Veltar, weapon ready. "Do it then, Kethmori. Prove that your people are the monsters we know you to be." But Veltar did not fire. Instead, he did something unprecedented in 6,000 years of war. He lowered his weapon. "The human is right," Veltar said slowly. "You are afraid? Fear makes beings do terrible things. I have done terrible things because of fear. My people have done terrible things because of fear." Nimdar moved closer to the wounded Rivera. But the human also said that forgiveness does not mean allowing harm to continue. Working together for the first time in millennia, Veltar and Nimdar surrounded the extremists. They did not hurt them, but they made it clear that the violence would stop. "We need medical attention for this human," Nimdar said firmly. "And we need to protect the innocent beings on this ship," Veltar added. The extremists looked confused. They had expected either perfect justice or perfect mercy. They had not expected Kethmori and Zarkith working together to find a middle path over the ship's communication system. Commander Chun's voice announced that the external battle was over. The extremist ships had withdrawn when they saw Kathmori. Vessels moving to defend the human ship. Dr. Okafor finished treating Rivera's wound. "You'll live," she told him, "but you need rest." Rivera smiled weakly. "Did it work? Do they understand?" "Now?" Valtar knelt beside the human who had risked his life for peace. "We understand something important. We understand that forgiveness is not weakness and justice is not cruelty. They are tools to be used together, in balance." Nimdar's water form flowed closer. "And we understand that change is not corruption, it is growth." 3 months later, Lieutenant Marcus Rivera stood before the Galactic Council on a space station larger than Earth's moon. His chest still hurt where the Zarketh weapon had struck him, but he was alive and honored to be humanity's first ambassador to the stars. Representatives from 47 species filled the Great Hall. Kathmori stood beside Zarketh for the first time in 6,000 years. Other species that had been locked in their own conflicts watched with interest as Rivera began to speak. "Humans are not perfect," Rivera said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "We make mistakes. We hurt each other. Sometimes we make the wrong choices about when to forgive and when to seek justice." He paused, looking at Valtar and Nimdar, who sat together in the front row. "But we keep trying to do better. We keep learning from our mistakes. And most importantly, we never stop believing that people can change, that enemies can become friends, and that wars can end." The hall was silent except for the soft sounds of different species breathing, flowing, or existing in their various forms. "The question you asked us was how we choose to forgive," Rivera continued. "But I think the real question is how we choose to hope. How do we keep believing in the possibility of a better future, even when the past is full of pain?" A representative from a species Rivera had never seen before stood up. "And what is your answer to that question, human?" Rivera smiled, thinking of his crewmates aboard the Horizon's Edge, of Commander Chun's difficult decisions, of Chief Hayes learning to see beyond his military training, of Dr. Okafor's endless curiosity about other ways of thinking. "We choose to hope," he said simply, "by choosing to care about each other, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when we don't understand each other completely." He gestured toward Valtar and Nimdar. "These two peoples taught us something important too. They showed us that even the strongest beliefs can evolve. Even the oldest enemies can find new ways to see each other." The Galactic Council voted unanimously to accept humanity as a member. But more importantly, they voted to establish the Human Mediation Corps, a new organization dedicated to helping species resolve conflicts using the balance of justice and mercy that had ended the Kathmori-Zarketh War. As Rivera left the Great Hall, he reflected on how strange life was. He had started as a simple linguist trying to translate alien mathematics. Now he was helping to translate the deeper language of hope itself. The aliens had come with questions about forgiveness. But in the end, they had taught humanity something just as valuable. That the things that make people different can also be the things that make them stronger together. In the vast darkness of space, new friendships were forming between species that had never imagined they could understand each other. And at the center of it all was a simple human truth. Everyone deserves a chance to become better than they were yesterday.